Hi, my name is Sandoval. I'm a professor and hi, my name is Sandoval. I'm a Hi, my name is Sandoval. I'm a professor and an extension specialist at UC Davis. And today we're going to be talking about an introduction to water resources planning and management. So, today we're going to be talking about an outline. This is the outline. We're going to be talking about water resources management. Why do we do water resources planning and management? And then some of the specific details of that, such as scales, approaches, some of the aspects, characteristics, and challenges. So, let's start. Actually, before defining water resources planning and management, let me actually ask you this. So think about managing a resource. In this case, something that you can relate, it will be managing your finances, your budget. So let's think that do you receive the exact amount that you need to spend every day? Are you adjusting for every month or every 2 weeks? Also, is imagine that you are do you receive it exactly the same amount throughout your life, or are you receiving sometimes more money or less money? Are you receiving it always at the same place, or when you're generating it, do you receive it in the right space that you need? It can be from a physical space, it can be on your mailbox as a check in your accounts and so on. What about if you're receiving it in the adequate currency? What if you're receiving all your money, all your salary, or your annual stipend as I don't know, in a different a currency like pesos? Or what if you are receiving it in a species? Let's say you're receiving it in pounds of meat, but all of a sudden you're vegetarian. So I mean, you even though you're receiving a payment, that will not fill your needs. Um, what if you're receiving all the money that you need in a lump sum? All of that just in one amount? Or do you want it to receive it distributed throughout the time? What if you're receiving it only today but never in the future? So a lot of those things can be related to water resources planning and management. So in essence, water is not when water is not equitably distributed in time and place. We do not receive all the water that is raining. It will not rain every day, so we can collect it and use it on that day. And so it's not in time, not also in place. We have sometimes more rain in certain regions than the other, in this case, in the Sierras. And what about in the right quantity? And that was what I was talking with you. Well, quantity will be in this amount of time, in this amount of volume, with the adequate quality. That's what I was talking to you in terms of the currency. What if you're receiving, but you cannot use that currency? Yeah, you have money or resources, but you cannot use it because it's not adequate for your needs. That will be the case of water quality. So this discipline, water resources planning and management, we use some of the techniques and methods developed in this discipline to find ways to improve the distribution, the allocation of water in a way that satisfies the needs of water users, including the environment. And something important is not only for today, but in the future. So as you can see, you can relate to, when think about water resources management, think about managing your bank account, your finances. Don't run that much the credit cards, but definitely that's something that you have to think about it. So that's water resources planning and management. Now I'm going to be focusing in some of the traditional areas that this discipline has explored. So one of those areas is have not enough water, and that is mostly related with droughts and water supply. Specifically, in terms of droughts, well, these are periods of stress when we're stressing the system and there may be not that much water available. For me, droughts are kind of a slow death. So basically, yeah, you're seeing that there is no water, that people are suffering, the trees or the food, the water for the crops that we need is not there yet. is not in a shock. He's just a slow death. He's just passing slowly. This is because droughts, I mean, we have a seasonal variability and also, and that will be water supply, and that's when you want to move water from one season to the other, but also interannual variability. And because of that, we've been thinking how to operate the system so we can improve the water supply, the so-called water supply reliability. So how frequent, on how good, how much more volume of water you're receiving water. But consider that a lot of the infrastructure that we have is very old. So we're thinking to redesigning, reoperating the systems. Also, we've been thinking, excuse me, on the hydrology, the climate that we have has changed. So because of that, we've been thinking on not only a drought, not only in operation, but reoperation. So rethinking what the systems, the infrastructure, considering the new needs that we have, protecting the environment, energy, recreation, and so on, but also the very challenging, changing hydrology that we have. So this is April 2011, as I was mentioning before. This is the year that I arrived, and when I flew, it was actually in March. I think I interviewed for UC Davis on March 12, March 14 of 2011, and when I was flying in and out, that's what I saw. I saw all the Sierra Nevada full with snow. What you're seeing there is the snow depth, and that is in April 1st. And it is in April 1st, and it's not because it is Fool's Day. It is because that, in theory, that will be the amount of a snowpack that we will have available for water supply. For that specific, for the summer season and for the year. That's what I saw in there. Then, as I mentioned, I came here, and later, as I was coming from Texas, well, you know, the drought started, and this will be the first year of the drought. So as you can see here, things look different, but they don't look that different. Yeah, it was a less than normal, less than average year, but that's the first year of the drought. This will be the second year of the drought, and now you can actually see that by that specific, on April 1st, on 2013, it wasn't that much snow. This will be on April 14, that's the third year of the drought. This is the fourth year of the drought. This is where actually a lot of the legislation, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and other legislations were passed. As you can see, there was no snow in there. 2016, that's the fifth year of a drought. Now, pay attention here because that's for the next also slide. The next 2017, that will be the wettest year on record. So see how that year 2017 compares to a wet year. So this is it. This is what you can see as the wettest year on record. It doesn't look that wet, isn't it? It doesn't look with that much of a snowpack. That is because basically we have climate change. A lot of the water, it came in terms of rain. It melted early. That's what we had for the water supply after a 5-year drought. And this was because, I mean, this is all related with climate change. This will be below normal and above normal. And then this is this year on April 10th. So one of the issues that water resources management works is droughts, water supply, reliable water supply of water, and this operation, reoperation of system. Then we're going to be talking about too much, and in this case, it's too much water. How is that? How will that be a problem for water resources management? Well, this will come in terms of floods, and yes, with floods, what is coming is these events that bring a lot of water and all the basin producing all the water and Mother Nature going back again to the usual rivers, the usual paths that they have. And then, of course, all the infrastructure and all the different economic systems, agriculture, urban cities, industries, all of them at the risk of that. So this is Lake Oroville. This is Oroville Dam. Basically, when they realized that there was a problem with the spillway, Tiny People is a big hole. That's actually when they realized that Houston, we got a problem. And then, of course, associated with these specific flood events, the risk. the risk of losing the reservoir and not only losing the construction of it and all the water supply benefits that it provides and so on, but also putting at risk people, the life of people. And associated with the risk, it also comes some of the economics. What will be the impact of this? And that's something typical that is managed in this part of water resources management. Next one, too polluted. And typically when we think about too polluted, we think about rivers. Rivers that have been polluted because of a raw discharge of water, and that is still happening. That's sadly, but that is still happening in some parts of the world. That's pretty sad. Imagine that someone put a pipe with a bunch of smoke or carbon dioxide in your house and just let it run. It's the same that what we're doing with putting all of these raw sewer systems in rivers. Well, in this case, so we think about this problem of pollution as very alien. We have it in California, and when typically we're seeing that it's too polluted, water too polluted, we're thinking about water quality. Something that it's been very challenging for us in terms of solving this problem, unfortunately, is been with the following slogan: dilution is solution for pollution. So we dilute the problems and then we think that they are gone. Basically, we're attacking the symptoms, but not the causes. Something that you can see about this, so for instance, this is a map of all the different wells for drinking water. Many of them are domestic wells that exceed, if they are red, or that they double the amount of exceedance of nitrate on the wells. So what this means is that we have plenty of wells with nitrate. Fertilizers, they are mostly composed by NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. This is the fertilizer, the nitrogen that is showing now in wells. This is the Central Valley. We're in the heart of California. Salinas, Tulare, Kings, Kern County, that's what we're talking here. People drinking fertilizer. That's what we're talking here. And again, we're thinking about this too polluted, mostly in terms of rivers. Look at the water that is coming to your faucet. What about Davis? And in Davis, most as well, we have water coming from wells, but also we have water coming from the Sacramento River. Why? And that's in the last 3-4 years. That was past 2015, 2017. Why do you think that happened? We had problems of pollution on the wells that were providing water to the city, and because well, there is some ag, there is some industry around it, and we still have that legacy of water and nitrates coming through the groundwater. Well, we decided to dilute the problem. Again, dilution is solution for pollution. We decided to bring water from the Sacramento, mix it up, and then send it back again to the tap. So that's unfortunately what is been happening. Water quality is a problem of everyone. And it is also a problem in everything, including for the environment. HABs, harmful algae blooms, that's what we're seeing here. This is a problem throughout California. I think we're thinking this some other places in the world. Yes, we have it. Too much ecosystem loss. I think one of the main reasons that we have this problem and that we're addressing this problem of too much ecosystem loss is because we think of the environment as a user. The environment is not a user like urban or industrial or energy or agriculture. The environment is the provider of water. All the water comes from the environment. You tell me every drop of water comes from the environment. Unless we invent a machine that actually can put 2 atoms of hydrogen of 1 oxygen, put it together and generate water, until we get there, all the water comes from the environment. And it comes in terms of rain, it comes in terms of snow, fog, we're doing some rainwater harvesting, groundwater, all of it comes from it. We've been thinking that, we're thinking that we're going to use all the water and leave some water for the ecosystem, while the ecosystem is producing all the water that we're using. To have an analogy of this, think that you are the breadwinner. You are the one that bringing most of the income to your house. Just think for now. Imagine that as you're coming to your house and bringing these economic resources, all of a sudden they just give you, for you to live with all your needs, 10% of what you're earning, 5% of what you're bringing to the house. That's what we are doing to the environment. We're just giving a very small amount of water, and yet we want to think that the ecosystem will be there, that we're supporting the ecosystems. That has been one of the problems. What you're seeing here in this picture is the 9 natural stream flow classes of California. The fingerprints, how the rivers used to look in California, they were driven by snowmelt, they were driven by rain, and by snowmelt and rain, which are these mixed flow regimes. And we're going to be talking about those later. What I do want to mention is that out of those, now we know that in different stream flow gauges, we have low disturbance with some water withdrawals in these areas. We have high gauges with high disturbance with reservoirs, agriculture and less disturbance, water supply and storage. We have problems with urban, the fingerprint, how the water used to flow throughout the year and throughout different years. That has changed from these natural snow, rain, and mixed signatures to now signatures that have a clearly distinction for a urban runoff, for a water supply and storage runoff, a runoff or a stream flow, for an agriculture and high disturbance flows. We're going to be talking about those, but the problem is that the environment has no voice when we're discussing about it. The second problem is that we think the environment as a user, not as a provider. The third problem is that we're just putting a small amount and thinking that all the resources are for us, and not to have this change in the vision, which is that the good that we treat Mother Nature is how Mother Nature will treat us well also. I think that's a change in the way that we can think about this. All of this, it comes very costly. So we think of building a reservoir and all that capital cost and operation, maintenance. And when we're thinking later, all the money that we have to invest to restore, to conserve some of those ecosystems, it comes very costly. 2 or 3 times the cost that we're paying up front. And that is that's something that later you and I were paying in our taxes, in our state taxes, federal taxes, and so on. We're paying it. That's why it's so expensive to live in some places. So finally, hearing scales. When we're talking about hearing scales, think about, this is going to be a comparison between the natural scales at where processes are happening. In this case, how a stream flow, rivers, wetlands, lakes, reservoirs respond. And those may respond, some of the streams or runoff may respond in terms of hours. As it rains, it goes there. Some of those processes, the same with floats, and until these kind of wetlands, reservoirs, that they occur in this kind of area. Groundwater aquifers, water has to move around all the different porous media. So the time of response, it might be not as quick as some other ones, but it may have from yearly to decades responses on this. The same with runoff that we're seeing here, between weeks to months, seasons, sometimes all the way to 2 hours. And again, this will go from 1 kilometer, 10 square kilometers to that area. Watershed and land cover change, and those are a little more seasonal to decadal. Now, let me so this is kind of the natural process. And remember that when we were discussing water resources, the definition of it, planning and management, water resources planning and management is understanding this natural system, the water cycle as a natural system, then the human, environmental, social components, And that interface, that junction between those two, that's what water resources management is doing. This is more on the natural system. Now let's talk about this kind of social system. As we were discussing, now I'm gonna change this axis to, let's say at the farm, watershed, irrigation district, small, medium city, tributaries, sub-basin and basin. So from very small to very large scale. So floods and flood management, I mean, we manage or we do all the modeling, all the analysis for events. So it might go from minutes, hours, mostly days. But however, we analyze data at a yearly, decadal way at all these different spatial scales, from very point scale all the way to sub-basin, basin scale. So that's kind of putting on the same perspective the temporal and spatial scales for this. Now, the next one will be operations. And when I'm talking about operation is a water supply, a network distribution operations, drinking water operations, sewer systems, even reservoirs, canals, and so on. We really operated at the day to weekly scale. Might be monthly, but the operation when you're thinking of that is how you're going to operate the water that you have in a week, in a day. And then mostly from the watershed to the tributary scale. Yeah, basin to basin, you can think of it, but that's on the operation is not that common. Water supply, and that usually comes thinking about from week, how it's gonna be, we are gonna be doing this water supply at a weekly, monthly, yearly, decadal, and then on the watershed all the way to the basin scale. And you can see here that that's why we typically have been thinking this flood management and water supply, these too little, too much in a separate buckets. The reality is that they are in one. Agriculture, yes, it can go from minutes, hours in terms of irrigation systems, seasonals, when you start having all these growing seasons, this year, and the interannual variability and the decadal variability. So that's, and usually it's at a smaller scale. Spatial scale. Environment and water for ecosystems. Here, something that I think it has been a problem is that we have defined the environment as a water quality parameters, but no, environment, when I'm talking about environment, is the ecosystems, what lives in the river and along the river, what lives inside, and that can be fish, macroinvertebrates, amphibians, some vegetation, algae, and so on, all the way to what it lives around the river, which is all the different trees, all the insects, the birds, some of the mammals that comes, the amphibians, and so on. So the environment, as you can see, in terms of thinking in the scale of responses from hours, these diurnal days, all the way to decades. And it spans from a small piece of farm that you can do good management and prevent runoff with pesticides or with pesticides into the river or into the aquifer, all the way to basin scale. And that's why it's also so challenging managing for ecosystems, for the environment, because basically it spans a big time and a big spatial scale. Energy goes from this kind of minute, which is this, most likely all the way into season, sometimes year, but not that much into the year. It's mostly hourly to seasonal. It will go from this watershed with small hydropower plants all the way to some tributaries. So that's where we are on these scales. This is some of the context in here. Now, I'm going to be switching gears here. So if you want to make a pause or get some water, as I'm going to do it, and so on, this is the time. And then come back, we're going to come back, and then we'll keep doing. So get some water.